All right, despite the technical issues, we're live on the Unspoken Truth. G'day, Ed. How you doing, mate?
Living the dream, Robbie. How you doing, buddy?
Yeah, I'm really well, man. I've got a lot of fun stuff to share with you today. I'm going to take a slightly different tact and have some more fun. It's not all serious, end of the world, finances, World War III type stuff all the time. We've got to remember to have a little bit of a laugh. So I'm going to do that with you. Ladies and gentlemen, if this is your first time here at the Unspoken Truth, welcome. I'm your host, Robert Bruss, and I'm joined by my good mate, Edward Anderson, over there in Minnesota. It's 2:30 p.m. Minnesota time and 5:30 a.m. Sydney time here in the future. If this is your first time here, Ed and I like to pull back the curtain on the mainstream media and show you what's going on. And we like to give you the unspoken truth of what's really happening in the world. On today's show, we've got garlic is magic. Who knew? Man, oh man, that's one of the biggest trending stories that's happening on Twitter and maybe even the world. And I've got some stuff to say about that. Not too much, but you know, I don't want to say I told you so, but I told you so. So I'm going to play with that for a couple of minutes and have some fun with that. I've got some reactions that I want to see Ed have. I'm going to show you what it looks like when the narrative actually comes undone. I've got a video for you that shows what it looks like. You won't believe what it looks like when the narrative comes undone. It's pretty funny. You know, there's that famous song, The Roof is on fire. I don't like to sing on this podcast, but you know, that's actually what's happening to the mainstream narrative. But I also got a perspective on this garlic story coming out and wondering why it's actually part of the mainstream. And we're going to get serious for a little bit as well in the second half of the show. I'm going to tell you about the worsening financial situation. Ed's got, no doubt, some graphs and a little bit of a report for us on the bankruptcies in commercial real estate. I noticed yesterday on some of my feeds in social media that commercial real estate is in the headlines here in Australia. And that is definitely a problem. And that is a leading indicator for us to get ready for the end of the financial situation or the end of the financial world as we know it, maybe even financial World War III. Who really knows? But we're on the cusp, we're on the precipice. Folks, if you haven't followed us over on the podcast, head over to your favorite podcasting app and search for The Unspoken Truth. We're over there. About an hour after the show, I pull down the file, upload it to Spotify. It'll pull into Apple and all of the other podcasting apps as well. Make sure you come on over and visit us in Telegram, and the link is in the description below, folks. Come on over to Telegram and check it out there. I've got a whole bunch of videos that I post in there every day on about all sorts of things that are related to the unspoken truth. I just can't talk about those things here on this platform, and that's the ultimate form of technocracy and the ultimate form of communism when I'm forced to self-censor myself. I don't have to self-censor myself over there on Telegram because I'm a free and sovereign citizen in that part of the world still. So come on over and check that out. I've got lots of funny videos there, and I've got lots of things that will show you the unspoken truth. So just scroll down and have a checkers in the description there for the link, and make sure you pop on over and see Ed and I over there. All right, mate, have you got any opening remarks before we kick off the show here, Ed?
Just shout out to my friends in the Hey Ed WhatsApp group and on the Hey Ed YouTube channel where we do stream now. Hey guys, hope you guys start. We do this every day now, Monday through Friday, so at the same time. So hope you guys start tuning in and please give us some comments. We love to hear comments during the show, and we try to respond to you. But sometimes we get carried away. It might take us a little while to get to you, but please give some comments. Say hello. Let us know you're there.
Yeah, absolutely. We'd love to hear from you. We'd love to know where you're from. And also, we want to hear your opinions about the stories that we're talking about. So on that note, let's kick off and talk about garlic. Is garlic something that's part of your diet, Ed?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I love garlic. Yeah. And I'm a big believer in the medicinal values of garlic. Sure. I mean, I try not to eat too much of it before if I have a big date or anything, but other than
mate, I had to laugh. I gotta share my screen here to make my point. Let me get rid of that graphic. Let me share my screen. I tell you, man, this is just absolutely ridiculous. Australian garlic kills COVID-19, says Doherty Institute. So this is not me. Garlic might not just be good for keeping vampires away, but also COVID-19 and the common flu. No fucking shit. According to new research being released on Wednesday. This is not new research. If I scroll further down somewhere here in this article, I'm not sure if it's in this article. Here it is here. This is the strange contradiction, right? According to new research being released on Wednesday. So that was yesterday that it was released. Today is Thursday here in Sydney. And if I scroll down here, it says, this is how fucking ridiculous this is. People have been taking garlic since the days of the pyramids before Christ because of the health benefits. No shit. Garlic is known to be good for killing bacteria. It's been long used in traditional Chinese medicine. People have been joking with me that it might be good for social distancing as well. Now, there's a bunch of reports out there. You can find them on social media. I'm sure you're seeing it on mainstream media as well. And I'm sure you're seeing that come through your social media feed as well. But who knew? Who knew that garlic was going to solve the problem? Didn't we know that ivermectin was going to solve the problem? Didn't we know that zinc was going to solve the problem, and vitamin D, just going outside, maybe going for a walk in the sunshine when you're feeling a bit shit, maybe drinking some water and traditional things for looking after you when you've got a cold or something like that. Man, oh man, I just imagine how unbelievably stupid these politicians think or feel now after spending hundreds of billions of dollars on a fake experimental thing that you don't know what is in it, that injured and killed thousands of people around the world and destroyed the entire economies in the process. Don't you see, folks? Don't you see that the people in charge are not actually in charge? It wasn't Scott Morrison in charge. It wasn't the health minister in charge. It wasn't. It can't have been. Because if they discovered garlic was the solution, how long have they been sitting on that research? According to that article, it says 18 months. But I promise you, there's some pretty smart, intelligent people out there that already know this shit. Remember the guy with ivermectin came out? He's an Australian doctor. He's the one who created it or whatever. It's been used since the 1970s, saying that, you know, it's a cure-all for all sorts of treatments, everything from stomach ulcers to a range of other problems. And this is the solution here. And if you read in Robert F. Kennedy's book, The Real Anthony Fauci, what he does is he outlines and details in great detail exactly how they shut that down, how they shut down the complementary medicine. I'm not sure what they call it there in America. It's called complementary medicine here in Australia. Anything you can buy over the counter that's like a natural remedy, that's what you would call it. And they shut that argument down completely. And garlic fits squarely into that complementary medicine remit. And if I look a little bit closer and I look at the summary, so if I grab that article and ask the AI to tell me something more about that article or summarize it a little bit, they've actually patented their finding. So there's a way for these folks to make money, but who's making money? The Doherty Institute? Who are they? They're like a research institute or something like that. But you know, the question is, what are they not? They're not a pharmaceutical company, are they? So, you know, you're free to choose as a free sovereign person in this world whether or not you want to take those garlic tablets or you don't. But man, oh man, it just says to me that the people that were in charge during it kind of amplifies and proves to me again that they definitely weren't in charge at all. And it also shows me how unbelievably stupid they were. And it validates me saying, I don't know, I feel personally validated by that story because I've been saying for a while now, whatever you do, don't do what a politician says. They are fucking morons. And when you look at doctors like Dr. McCullough, he came out and said part of the problem that they had with COVID, and he got struck off the register in America because he was actually treating patients. So he's at the coalface of it treating patients, and they went, no, you're not to treat patients, get out. And they shit-canned him. I was watching a video about that yesterday, how it actually happened to him, and he explained it. And it was pretty much that. And he said one of the strangest things in medical science and medical history, in the history of humanity, is that whenever you've got some sort of ailment, whatever that ailment is, the first thing that you do is you look to yourself for a solution. Oh man, my knee's hurting. Maybe I should get some ice. Maybe I should sit down. Maybe I shouldn't do that physical activity because my knee's hurting. Whatever physical ailment that you have, you look to yourself for treatment first. Oh, I'm starting to feel shit. I've got a bit of a blocked nose, a head cold, or I've got a sore throat. I'm not feeling so well. There's 1,000 remedies that you could try yourself at home. But at no stage during COVID did anyone say that you should try these things. They said just turn up to the hospital when you can't breathe, and we'll put a ventilator down your throat and probably give you some remdesivir and get rid of you completely once and for all. Because when we do those things, every time we ventilate you and every time we give you that medicine and we do those things, the pharmaceutical companies actually pay you. Yeah, so we're going to do that as much as possible so you can rake in as much money as possible. And that's all outlined, by the way, and all documented, all researched properly in The Real Anthony Fauci, in that book written by Robert F. Kennedy. So if you haven't read that book, you should read that book. That will red pill you and wake you up properly as to actually what was going on. But my question about all of this is my small high horse for this morning. My question to you, Ed, is why is this even part of the mainstream narrative? It's all throughout mainstream media here in Australia because it's an Australian discovery and we've patented it and it's got to help out, blah, 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 all this bullshit, right? You know, it's like we've come out victorious on the other side of it. We need a good news story for this country run by absolute technocracy morons, and we've got a good news story. So is that why it's part of the mainstream? What do you think, Ed?
Well, yeah, the media is part of the deep state. Let's not have any illusions about that. So they're carrying water. They're providing cover for the deep state and the powers to be. As to whether or not these people are morons, well, I think that's the real debate. Are they morons or are they just evil?
No, I think they're useful idiots is the way you describe them.
Okay,
But
okay.
they don't know, and the reason I say they're morons and don't listen to them is because they don't realize that they're useful idiots. They're just instruments of the greater picture. They're instruments of what's actually happening.
Yeah, well, I mean, my point is, and it has been since the start, this has never been about public safety. This has all been about control.
Compliance.
And this was one big, massive experiment by our friends out at Davos, and they probably cannot believe how successful it was, how much they were able to get people to comply with their wishes, with their orders, and for them, it was a massive success. Of course, for everyone else in the world, it was a complete and utter disaster. When you sent me that article last night, it's not enough that Rob and I spend 3 hours a day talking on camera. But, then 2 hours later, he's sending me stuff and I'm sending him stuff.
Look at this. Check this out. What about that? Dude, you got to get a life. This is my life. Don't you understand?
Yeah, leave me alone. I'm happy. Well, look, if I get a girlfriend, you might not ever see me again. So just to you.
Hey, Ed, did you remember just the other day we did the reaction video to who was censoring Australian social media posts about COVID? There's a senator here in Australia. His name's Malcolm Roberts. He's part of the One Nation Party here in Australia, and he was grilling those same. It was an extension of what we were watching the other day, and it was an extension of who. So what he was really pissed off about when he was talking to these people from the Department of Home Affairs, he's saying, well, who was it that censored it? And it came out exactly who it was that censored it. And I'll show you on my screen. So I'm not saying anything that wasn't said in Parliament on the public record, but the woman who's the Director General or something from whoever she is from the Department of Home Affairs says that this is the company that was censoring Australians during the actual pandemic. This is the company that was paid to trawl through YouTube, through Twitter, through Facebook, through Instagram, through wherever they were going. They were paid to sit there and to look at social media and then say to the government, hey, we found a post that doesn't fit within the terms and conditions of Facebook's platform. Facebook are breaking their own rules about what they can and can't say on their platform. So these goody-goody do-gooders here that work for this company were actually the default censors that shut the narrative down. And Malcolm Roberts was massively pissed off yesterday. He's saying, why on earth did you do that? Why did you let that happen? Oh, well, we didn't have the resources to do that, so we had to give it to a third party to do it. So now the government stays at arm's length from it, says that we're not the arbiters of truth, but these idiots at this company here are the arbiters of truth. They're the ones saying the arbiters of truth. And Malcolm Roberts said, so now can you tell me, were my social media posts throttled or taken down? Can you find that out? Oh, we can't find out that individual information. And he said, yes, you can. You'll take that on notice and you'll go and find out if I was censored and if my fellow senator here was censored. And who else was censored, by the way? Why were they censored? What were they censored for? Take it on notice and show me what they were censored for. And he was getting pretty riled up. And the bureaucrats are sitting there in the middle pretending like they have no control. And they're like, I don't really know. I'm not sure. The health department employed that IT company and they've got a whole bunch of people sitting there all day long getting paid hundreds of thousands, probably millions of dollars by the Australian government to trawl through Facebook and Twitter and go, you know what, I think that might be misinformation there because I know better and I think that guy is full of shit. I think that guy might be a white terrorist as well, by the way, so let's report it. Fuck these people, man. I just, who are they to think that they're the arbiters of truth? And what Australian company puts their hand out to the government and says, yeah, we'll go and figure out who's outside the terms and conditions of Facebook? Why don't you let just Facebook actually do it? Why don't you let the Facebook algorithm do that? Why do we need a third-party company to do that? Those people that work for that company should be ashamed of themselves. They are absolutely disgusting, disgusting human beings that are no better than a communist fascist from Nazi Germany. They're the same, they're of the same ilk. They're the true Nazis. You want to talk about Nazis in society? The Nazis in society are the ones that are censoring you, and the government are the instrument to enable that to happen. But they'll say, we didn't do anything wrong. We just said that to Facebook that it was not within their terms and conditions. But Facebook know that it's not within their terms and conditions. Let the Facebook algorithm do its thing. Why is the government the arbiter of truth? Why is that company and the people and the individuals behind that the arbiter of truth? They're the true fascists, man. They're the fascists that are silencing us. That's the company that was doing it. We know. And in my view, that's the entire narrative collapsing. And now we have this stupid story. Maybe it's timed about garlic. This story is timed about garlic. Yeah, this is how you fix all of these problems. No one goes, oh, wow, that's a great idea. That's really good. I've got some garlic tablets over there. I have garlic in my cooking every day. Yeah, that's really good. But over here, we're saying, look at the shiny object, the garlic. That's the shiny object. And the unspoken truth is, over here, you were being censored by normal people with a job sitting in an office, probably from home on a Zoom call, censoring you like fascists from Nazi Germany in World War II. Unbelievable, man. Makes me go crazy.
Yeah, no kidding. Tell us what you really think. Come on, open up a little bit more, Rob.
Let me just have a sip of my coffee. It'll calm me down.
Right now, I'm sure there is somebody at the WHO taking a note saying, okay, when they have to name the next strain, it has to be, okay, so garlic resistant. When you sent me that article last night, and I read it, and I was finding, I said, you know what? These people did more research on garlic than the WHO did on COVID-19 before they started sending us these jabbers that we had to take. So
there's just one thing, Mr. Man. And I'm not a tinfoil hat wearing conspiracy theorist person. I've never really been drawn to those types of things. If the evidence supports something, and people make fun of you, like when you say you'll do your own research and the evidence supports it, they make fun of you. Like, are you a scientist? Are you wearing a white lab coat? No, they're like, no fuckwit. What I'm doing is I'm reading. Yeah, I'm reading. What you're actually doing is you're making fun of me for reading. And you're making fun of me for having an opinion. And the people that make fun of you for doing research and for doing homework and to get to a point where you can make an informed decision about your health, whether or not you're going to put something in your body or you're not, or whatever it might be. Is it a good idea for me to take creatine when I'm going to train in the gym? Well, maybe, I don't know. I'm 46 years old. I'm pretty healthy. I'm fit. I've been training in the gym my whole life. I'd have to do a whole bunch of research on that. And I'd have to do my own research to figure out whether or not it's good or it's bad to take creatine for myself to, get me on track to the targets that I've set for myself. No one would say anything about that. But if I did research about what could fix a common cold or what could fix a flu, which is worse than the common cold, people suddenly get all angry and hoity-toity about it and say, what are you doing? But here's the thing, and I wanted to preface it by saying I'm not a conspiracy theorist. All I'm doing is reading and listening and forming an opinion and a judgment about what I'm seeing. And what I saw that entire time during COVID, that we were being lied to the whole entire time. Yep. We were being lied to out of the gate. nobody knew what they were doing, and they just went along with whatever the reactions were, because all of the countries did all of the same things all at the same time. So that, that where there's smoke, there's fire. I smell a rat. Something not quite right. But here's the thing, Ed. Tell me this, man. Tell me this. Because even today, a couple of years on, 3 years on, more than 3 years, it's kicked off in January 2020, remember? 3 years on, still to this day, I've never seen it under a microscope. If you ever watch a news report about Ebola, they'll show you the strain of Ebola.
Yeah.
If you ever see something about AIDS, they'll show you something like that. But where have you ever seen COVID under a microscope?
Well, I have. And I can't remember ever seeing it. No, I haven't. No.
You only ever saw a round graphic wall with spiky things on it.
Exactly. I've seen the computer-generated thing, which are part of advertisements. They would have that, got to take this, and they have the picture of the, I don't know which artist came up with that. Yeah, that's all. Yeah, I've never seen.
So in that Australian article that I said to you, so look behind the story here, folks. Look behind it, and you've got to pull the unspoken truth out of it. And let me close out this little segment by sharing this bit here, because it'll get me back on my high horse. We wanted to know if these strains of garlic they're talking about there had the possibility of killing COVID-19, she told the Australian Financial Review. I thought it might fail miserably. We blindly tested over 20 varieties of garlic, that is. We found one of AGP's products could reduce infectious titer of SARS-CoV-2 and influenza by 3 log-fold, so 99.9%. We barely detected any remaining virus genome, indicating nearly complete acuity, viral acuity. So they're using all of these words and they're saying all of these things, but show me. Show me. I don't believe you. Show me. That's why I believe this is part of the mainstream, and part of the reason that this is here, because even if it is true that garlic has all of those properties and can do all those things, and that specific type of garlic, so which type of garlic is it, by the way? Because there's 39 different types or something like that. So which one is it? They didn't say. And if it was true, imagine if it was true, man, and you're the scientist with the lab coat, like in the pictures there, you're looking through your microscope and you go, hey man, there's nothing here. I can't see anything. Hang on, just look on the computer. And then you hear them, they're typing in the background, they're looking up at the computer at the screen going, it looks like 99.9% of it's gone. Wouldn't you be recording your screen? Apparently these scientists are way smarter than I am, man. They've gone to university for years, got doctorates, they're academics, they can, they're smart, they know how to put things together, create studies, and analyze statistics. They're really smart, hyper intelligent people, but they just forgot to record their screen or even take a screenshot. They forgot to go on their keyboard and go, where's the key? Control function, print screen, there it is. Fucking serious?
Well,
if that was a real article, why isn't it supported with a picture of what actually happened? Why aren't you showing me the evidence and the video? All you do is write it in text. And every mainstream media report from every TV station that's been shown in the last 24 hours only shows me that article. It just references that article and references those interviews. It doesn't show me the actual scientific results. Show me the results. But don't show me the results on a piece of paper with a table and some academic fucking bullshit. Show it to me under a microscope. Prove it to me that it's real. I trust you, but I'm trying to verify it. And there's no physical way I can verify it. But when I look at my Twitter, all I see in my Twitter is thousands and thousands of posts about garlic being able to solve this problem. But no one has bothered to verify, well, let's have a look under the microscope. Where is it? Because I don't know what COVID looks like under the microscope. I can't see it. I've never seen it. No one's ever shown it to me. No one on either side of this argument. And now you're telling me garlic fixes something that I can't see? Come on, man. Please. I don't believe anything that anybody says, especially Channel 9 fucking news here in Sydney.
I think you're being a little unreasonable, Rob.
Oh, come on.
I mean, as far as all of their garlic research might have been on one computer, and the junior analyst brought in his cat that day, and the cat stepped on the delete button, now they got to start all over again. So you never know. Maybe this is all inadvertently to show on the video here that
I've got as you're talking there, as you're commentating and offering your comments, I'm playing the video of the narrative collapsing. And so for people listening to this as a podcast, you know, there's a flatbed truck and it's full of styrofoam boxes with something in it and it's on fire. And this is what I believe is actually happening to the narrative, because now Elon Musk has taken over in Twitter, you're able to say these things. You're able to show the truth. And there's a series of videos out there. There's a video out there called Plandemic 3. I'll find the link and I'll put it in the description. And it shows you every dickhead on planet Earth in 1 8-minute video in a trailer about how all they wanted to do was to get you with some sort of medical device and instrument into your arm. They're stabbing you. And they're stabbing you with poison and nobody knows what that actual poison is. And the whole thing, man, the whole narrative right now is completely collapsing. And in some ways, the shiny object syndrome is the ultimate distraction. The distraction that they've created with this garlic thing is akin to the fire that you're seeing in front of you, and the narrative is them driving away in the truck. In my view, that's what the mainstream narrative actually looks like. It's collapsing. It's collapsed. It's on fire, and they're doing everything that they can to try and get rid of it. And it's a very strange time in history, man. Very strange.
Well, the good news is that the mainstream media is largely irrelevant these days. They've lost so much influence. It's just a fact that the media has a lower approval rating than Congress, which is pretty darn low. So that's a good thing, maybe. I mean, the entire viewership at MSNBC is constantly, the rating at MSNBC is constantly being beaten by the Cartoon Channel. So, so that's the
and
good
being
news.
hammered by the football on the weekend.
Yeah, and people are seeking out truth tellers like us, and that should redound to our benefit as people start seeking the truth, the untold truth.
All right, well, I want to get you a reaction. I want to shift gears, and I just want to do some rapid fire stuff here. I've got a couple of videos I want to share with you, Ed. They only go for a minute or so each, and I just want to get your reaction to it because some of it you might not have seen before. So I'm going to start with your good buddy, Klaus, and I want to see your reaction to what Mr. Klaus actually has to say. So let's take a look.
But still pay insufficient attention to the frightening scenario of a comprehensive cyber attack, which would bring to a complete halt to the power supply, transportation, hospital services, our society as a whole. The COVID-19 crisis would be seen in this respect as a small disturbance in comparison to a major cyber attack. To use the COVID-19 crisis as a timely opportunity to reflect on the lessons the cybersecurity community can draw and improve our preparedness for a potential cyber pandemic.
What a fucking tool. He's a fuckwit of the highest order, man. I don't know how else to describe that guy without like swearing. I
mean, look, you got to hand it to the guy. You know, they're pretty damn good at marketing, man. You know, well, if we're going to scare them again, we got to up the fear factor. COVID-19 wasn't good enough. People are used to it, so we have people are normalized now so we have to up the next crisis. We have to really scare the hell out of people. So with every subsequent crisis, it's going to become more and more desperate, the subsequent crises, you know, as we become used to. But one thing you do got to hand it to these evil geniuses is every time they bring up the next crisis, they've got a solution all ready to go.
You know, I love film and television, right? I love, because I spend a lot of time editing videos, and I've just been in the creative space for a long time with Susie and a photography business, and we've done a lot of videography over the years. And I think I watched television and movies and stuff from a slightly different perspective. I have a deep appreciation of how a movie is put together and a TV show is put together. Everything from the script, because I love language, right? And I love the acting side of it, the delivery and the filming and the effort that goes into that. Often I'll watch a scene and say to Susie, we were watching a show the other day called The Spanish Queen. And, it's set in the 1400s or whatever. And they have the most incredible costumes you've ever seen in a TV show. And it's worth watching just for the costumes, even if you don't like the show or anything like that. But the acting and the story is like really good. And it's kind of the genius that they do when they have those things is they weave an element of truth into the stories. So part of the reason that Klaus is so effective with his marketing and his message there is he's actually right. If there was a massive cyber attack, if there was a cyber attack by a state actor that truly wanted to paralyze a society by turning off the energy grid, by turning off the internet and taking access away to our way of life, it would make COVID-19 pale insignificance. He's 100% right. But why would somebody like that come out and say that? What he's doing is he's agitating a problem to a solution that he's already got. And his solution is the digital ID. And the cyber attack will never actually happen if we know when you log on to the internet. Because if you log on to the internet with really bad intentions and we catch you with those bad intentions, we'll be able to put you in the digital gulag and lock you up. So you're not going to ruin life for the rest of us. If you're not doing anything wrong, you're not going to have anything to worry about. So just get the digital ID. Just do as you're told. And if you're a good boy and good girl, we'll make sure that you get your social credits, and then your central bank digital currencies on your phone there will be okay and you can eat. But if you're a naughty boy, a naughty girl, and you're thinking about going out there and doing something naughty, because if there's a giant cyber attack and you're the cause of the cyber attack because you're the bug in the system, you're the gap in our security because you haven't registered and you haven't logged into your Chrome browser, then unfortunately we're going to have to exclude you from society. You'll be excluded over there, unfortunately. It's evil, man.
Well, I really want to thank Klaus for alerting us that if the internet is hacked, that it could affect our lives. That that's something that never occurred to me. It's akin to like, boy, if you were crossing the road and you got hit by a semi truck, that could
probably
hurt.
Die.
Yeah. So thank you, Klaus, for that. Boy, news flash. I'm surprised that didn't make the evening news.
All right, let's go to the next one. I think you'll like this one.
Going woke, there had to be some reason, and after some digging, I found it. The CEI, Corporate Equality Index, aka the woke credit score. It's a made-up score based on how much a company is pushing woke issues. And who made up and gives this score? An organization called the HRC, a massive political lobbying group. Apparently, HRC sends representatives to corporations every year, telling them the kind of stuff they have to make visible at the company, give them a list of demands, and if they don't follow through, there's a threat that they won't keep their CEI credit score. And why do companies even care about this made-up woke credit rating?
If they get a bad score, then the woke investor funds start putting pressure on the boards. Woke activists are mobilized out in the streets. Advertising campaigns are shut down. Anyone that continues to do business with them will also be penalized. This is fascism.
Don't play their game, don't get their investment. And who is funding the HRC? Surprise, surprise, it's George Soros' Open Society Foundation. Now, this HRC has introduced this arbitrary credit rating to everything. States, municipalities, and even schools. Imagine that. There are people who are deciding what credit score an individual school can get. They threaten them by having these big funds withhold investments into them. We now have a made-up scoring system that doesn't physically exist, deciding how much digital money that doesn't physically exist companies get. And it makes people physically act a certain way. This is truly mind control.
It's a really succinct, concise explanation. Imagine trying to get a complicated subject like that into under 60 seconds. He did a good job there, right? That's a short that I found yesterday. So make sure, folks, you go and check out that guy's channel. That was really, really well done. What do you think about that when you see it?
Yeah. So every time he during the entire program, I'm thinking, So good morning, Target. Good morning, Bud Light.
Good morning, Budweiser.
Yeah, good morning. Yeah. So he's absolutely right. Now, there's preaching to the choir, man. I've been talking about this exact issue for like 2 years, and now it's people are now starting to be aware of it. People like Glenn Beck, he's been on it for a couple of years as well. So people have been raising the alarms on this exact topic for a long time, including me. I was talking about it long before it was popular, before anyone even knew about it, and so I'm very aware of it. And it is at the center of the evil going on in the world. It's right there. That's the genesis of a lot of the policies being forced upon us throughout the world. And they've been working on this for a decade out of the WEF, the United Nations, the IMF. This is a global push by the elites. So this is not new, but more and more people are starting to become aware of this. And issues that have really kind of brought it to the fore are issues like what happened at Bud Light and Target. Okay, now they kind of revealed themselves. They blew it. They should have kept things quiet, man. They were evil does best when they're in the shadows. When they're brought out in the sunlight and people recognize them, that's when they screw up, and that's when they start paying the price. Now, there is a little bit of good news that I alerted to you to last night. I was going to have my segment on it today, was that it looks like some major corporations are starting to ditch the ESG cult. The IMF has their net zero program and designed, and it's all related to the ESG score. Well, how's the ESG score? And they had well over like 100 people on the list, major corporations around the world, part of that group. 7 of them over the past about 2 weeks have decided to leave. One of them is like Lloyd's of London. Is it that? Never mind. Yep. So some major companies, they're starting, and the reason is because they saw what happened to Bud Light, they saw what happened to Target, they saw what happened to give me some others. There are a lot of them out there. REI and North Face. They're starting to see, and they're seeing. I mean, Target, their revenues are down over $10 billion in just a matter of a couple of weeks. And if you look at the stock price of that guy, it's not looking very good. So these guys are having little come to Jesus moments. You have to say, well, how woke do we really want to be?
It highlights something really big for me. He said they use this imaginary score that doesn't exist anywhere to prevent you from getting imaginary money that you don't currently have. So I can sum up the whole ESG thing in 2 words. And just in listening to what you're saying there, and I just had this epiphany. So it's live here on the Unspoken Truth that Rob had an epiphany. But when I say the words, it's not an epiphany because everybody knows that this is true. And when you speak the truth and the truth comes out of your lips, you can't unhear it. So what's actually happening, what these businesses and brands and this George Soros organization is doing, is they're using a thing called loss aversion. So in human nature, loss aversion is much stronger than actually gaining something, the potential to gain something. I'm more worried about losing something than I am excited about gaining something, because I can always go back to being excited to try and get that again. But if I've got something and I'm going to lose it, then I'm really worried about it. And there's been a lot of science and a lot of studies that psychologists have done over the years, and it's actually a sales strategy that you can use, like loss aversion. And the way that you do that in a sales strategy is you just say these words. I don't know about you, but if I was you, I would do this, because this is a deal too good to pass up, and this deal probably won't come around again. And so that's how people use loss aversion to actually get you to make a decision about buying something. And they're using loss aversion here to say that if you don't comply with this imaginary score that we're giving to you, then you potentially in the future might not get funding, and your advertising campaigns might go away, and other businesses that you do business with now, they probably won't do business with you anymore. So they're using the fear of something. So it's the carrot and stick, right? It's the fear of doing something or not been able to get something that's forcing these people into control. And that's what's actually happened over the last couple of years, particularly with COVID. If you don't go and do what we tell you to do, then you're going to be excluded from society. You won't be able to go into a cafe, you can't go into a restaurant, you can't go on a train, you can't do this, you can't do that. So why don't you just go and do what we tell you to do, and then life can just go back to normal. Yep. So it's all about, well, I want to be able to get on a plane. Yep. I want to be able to go and do that, but I'm not doing that now. I don't have to get on a plane to go anywhere. I could just walk. You know, I've got two arms and two legs. I could just walk. Can I walk to Queensland? Yeah. Is it more efficient than catching a plane? No. Will it take me a long time? Yes. But I could still do it. So they're using loss aversion to manipulate all parts of society. And now, as that fellow said on that 1 minute video, you're doing it with everything from large companies, as you pointed out there, Ed, you know, Lloyd's of London, to heaven's sake, to the local public school and the primary school in your suburb. Unbelievable.
Mm-hmm. Well, you know, I want to warn you. I do have my phone out, and I just opened up my Dia app, and
have you reported me? Have you reported on your neighbor in the Dia app?
I'm going to report you as a bad actor. And
you know, in the Dia app there, when you download Dia, you can report where the airstrikes happen, right? So the Russian missiles come in and it blew up the local clinic down the road. That's how the Ukrainian government know, because people in the local area are like, fucking Russians, man, they blew up the shit. Blah, blah, blah. And they're like, where? Go on the map, and you look in the map and go like that. So fast forward into the future, away from the war. The war's going to end eventually. At some point it will end. Maybe not. But at some point it will end. You've got your app there, and they'll be like, you know what? If you see like somebody littering, if you see somebody spitting, if you see somebody doing something we don't like, maybe you don't like, he's
collaborators. He's my neighbor. I think my neighbor is a collaborator.
No one will know.
Yeah.
No one will know. Just report him. No one will know.
No one will know.
Talk about fucking evil society. All right, Ed, I got one last one here for you. And I was giggling to myself as I was scrolling through the TV last night, looking at what to watch. I saw Iron Man 3. And I love the Iron Man movies, right? I really like Robert Downey Jr. And when that first came out, I was like, wow, what a great movie. I was like, I love a good superhero Marvel movie, right? And, you know, it's just chewing gum for your brain. It doesn't mean anything that I like that. Some people hate those movies or whatever. And I'm like, whatever, man, just watch it. Like, enjoy it for a couple of hours, you know, switch your life off and live in a fantasy world. If you were reading a book, it's the same thing. You're just watching it with your eyes and your ears. It's a little bit different. But in Iron Man 3, the villain at the start of the movie is running around. He's like a really, really bad dude. You probably don't remember this part of the plot. And because it came out several years ago. But the villain's running around. He's a really bad dude. And then there's a point in the movie, there's an inflection point in the movie where he comes out of the bathroom and there's all these like supermodels in his apartment and they're like wearing around bikinis, and he comes out of the bathroom and he's like, whoo, whatever you do, don't go in there for 5 or 10 minutes, you know, like that. He's just taking a dump in the shitter, right? And he closes the door and comes out, and then you realize the inflection point there in the movie that the villain is completely fake. It's fake. It's not real. The whole thing was a ruse. The whole thing was fake. And I remember sitting there in the movies at the time, like laughing. I can't remember exactly what year it was, but it was around the same time where in Syria, what was when ISIS first kicked off, right? So I'll tie something funny back to something really serious. So ISIS, the caliphate, had kicked off and they'd taken over large swaths of Iraq, and they were going to make this the Islamic State and blah, blah, all this bullshit, right? And they were in Syria, and the Americans faked a chemical attack with chlorine. And I looked for the video before. I've seen the video a couple of times, but at the time I wasn't doing the unspoken truth, so I never saved the video. But there's like footage of everybody running around, and it's like this mad scene, and like these kids are like coughing and they're frothing at the mouth and shit like that. And there's people hosing them, and there's all this shit going on. Yep. And then like the director goes, right, all right, cut. And the people that are on the ground, like ironed out, they're like on the ground, like playing dead. They all get up, and they walk away, and it's like the whole thing is fake. And what they're doing is they're saying the Assad regime is using chlorine chemical weapons to do this. And then there's like a cuts to a reporter saying, well, you know, We don't know if they're using chlorine gas on their own population, because the only way to really know is to do it with a blood test. They certainly look like they've got the symptoms. They're foaming at the mouth and they can't breathe. Their eyes are burning. They can't do the saying all this. But there's no way to verify it unless we get a blood test. And I have that guy there foaming at the mouth. I get his blood and I do that and I look under the microscope and I can see that it's actually real. But otherwise, I'm going to take it at face value that it's actually not real. And then I found the video. I'm not going to play it because it's too long. And it's Bashar al-Assad. So the leader, the evil leader of Syria. He's like the most evil dude in the world, right? He's the villain at the time. But if you've ever seen an interview with this guy, he's actually a really nice dude. He's very charismatic. He's very kind. He's very soft, super softly spoken. But he's portrayed as this evil dictator, worse than Stalin and Mao combined. He's the Pol Pot of the 21st century. And you're like, the dude is actually pretty nice. He was really nice to that lady, that reporter, and he spoke well. He answered all her questions. He wasn't trying to slither out of any questions or anything like that. But he comes out and he goes, well, it never happened. I never used chemical weapons. I didn't have chemical weapons. What are you talking about? And you would remember when Xi Jinping came to visit Donald Trump in the White House. There's this big state address, there's everything, shaking hands, and there's pictures and everything, and the wives are together. Then they come together and sit down at the table, and somebody whispers in Donnie's ear. And Donnie's like, fire the fucking tomahawks, fuck those people. And while he sits down at dinner with Xi Jinping, there's tomahawk missiles raining down on an airbase in Syria. And Donald Trump's like, yeah, we're going to put tariffs on you, and this trade bullshit that's going on, it's not real good. And I think that might have been the time when Xi Jinping really realised that there was nothing that he could do to get on side with anybody else, so he decided he was going to fight. I reckon that was his inflection point. So I want to show you a video just to remind you, ladies and gentlemen, that the mainstream media, particularly about getting experimental procedures into your body that cause extreme harm, and garlic maybe not being the solution, but being part of the problem, they'll only let you see what it is that they want you to see. Now, I can't verify if this is real or not, and if this is part of an Iron Man movie or a Hollywood plot or something. Either way, it's funny as hell. Let's take a look.
Look, we're going to use the at least 59 people killed, at least 149 people wounded. Those numbers are going to go up. There's just no question about that. I mean, you have fierce fighting in a number of locations around the country. You mentioned Chernobyl. Russian forces quickly overtaking that area and they're still in control. The other thing that went down today that was of huge importance was Russian paratroopers went into an airfield 15 miles outside of Kyiv for a short period of time.
Oh, I love it.
I don't know if it's real or it's not, man. But either way, it highlights the hypocrisy of the mainstream media.
Brilliant.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you're listening to this, what I showed you was a reporter. You could hear the reporter talking, and behind him, he's reporting on a mass casualty event. There's all these bodies in body bags, and the body bag closest to him is not actually zipped up properly, and the wind is blowing it. And as the wind is blowing it, as the wind's blowing, the fella inside the bag grabs the side of the bag to pull it back over his face. The world is gone, man.
That had to have been live, right? It had to have been.
I don't know. That's what I'm saying. I don't even know where it's from. I found it on Twitter, and I thought
that's going into my year-end video. My favorite. That's brilliant.
It shows me the mainstream media, man, how it's not real. All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's take a little break and just remind you that today's show is brought to you by you. In this crazy, uncertain world, we all need a way to protect and insulate ourselves from the outside forces that we simply cannot control. I'm a news junkie, and after a lifetime of constantly immersing myself in the darkness and the despair that engulfs the world, the path to shield myself and my family has become crystal clear. I want to invite you to come and join me in the Unspoken Truth community, where I'll show you how I protect my family from this crazy world. You'll get access to 3 masterclasses worth over $1,000, as well as our live events, training, and community of truthers just like you. Come on over to the unspokentruth.com.au and join us for just 50 cents a day. What are you waiting for? Get started now at the unspokentruth.com.au. Alrighty, what have you got for us today? Let's take a serious turn and let's tell the truth. The financial situation ain't getting any better. It actually continues to get worse.
Yeah, I don't want to sound like a broken record here, but this is important stuff. This is very serious stuff, and we here tell you things that you do not ever hear in the mainstream media. And there's a reason why we want to alert you to these kind of things. So let's take a look and then let's talk about it. Never say that I did not warn you. Okay, let's talk about it. Okay, so remember last week when I showed you a chart showing that corporate bankruptcies were up 216% year over year? The last time we saw those kind of numbers in 2008 to 2010 financial crisis. Well, there's more news about this, and you really need to know what is going on. So let's take a quick look at an article just out of Zero Hedge. The bankruptcy caravan is now arriving. Time to pay for the easy money. Now, the article starts out talking about a character in an Ernest Hemingway novel called The Sun Also Rises, where the character was asked about his money troubles. How did you go bankrupt? Bill asked. 2 ways, Mike said. Gradually and then suddenly. Okay, now that kind of describes what's going on in the market right now. The markets have been holding up pretty well amidst all of this really bad economic news. And what we are in right now, we are in the eye of the storm. We had the first storm about 6 weeks ago when we had 3 large banks go out of business. We're going to talk about that in a second. And since then, things have been relatively quiet, and the market has been kind of pushed around with headline news from day to day. But they can only keep this up for so long before they have to pay the piper and things puke. And that is what's coming up. Let's go back to the article. Round-hugging interest rates for more than a decade kept the inefficient and the incompetent in business. Now, I cannot tell you how important that one line is. When interest rates are so low and there's free money, then the people who are incompetent can get away with a lot of stuff. But then when things become real, then the jig is up. Now the jig is up with a Mother's Day weekend corporate massacre that saw bankruptcies of 7 corporations, each with liabilities of 9 figures or more, in 4 cases with more than $1 billion in liabilities. Okay, so those corporate liabilities, those corporate debts at those companies that just filed bankruptcy, they're never going to be repaid. That's it. That debt is gone. It's estimated that there's more than $1 trillion worth of bankruptcy debt in there, debt that's never going to be repaid. So now that interest rates are going up, and they're going to continue to go up, at least if the Fed is serious about fighting inflation, which, you never know, they could pivot. But as interest rates go up, we're going to see more and more of these bankruptcies. So more and more people are going to be losing their jobs, and the price of everything is going to continue to go up. Now, let's talk a little bit about how this affects the housing market. Now, housing prices have never been this high. They're at record highs. Now, they're starting to roll over, and mortgage default and people having to turn in the keys to their house is growing. And you're not going to hear about this in the mainstream media. But people are starting to lose their houses at a faster and faster pace. So for those of you who felt priced out of the housing market, be a little patient. You're going to have your chance. What you need to do now is prepare for it, so that you're not a victim, but you can prosper from it. We want to create an army of people who are going to prosper in the next financial collapse. And that's why we really need you to join the community that Rob has put together. And Rob's going to talk about that in a second. You need to surround yourself with like-minded people who want to prosper. And again, in the description below, we will have a sign-up link for that community. Okay, so I'm always going to tell you things that the mainstream media is not telling you. Things are not rosy, things are bad, and they're going to get worse. But in the spirit of keeping things short and pithy, we'll leave it there and we'll open it up for discussion. Please, in the comment section below, let me know what you think about the economy right now. 10 years ago, there were over 10,000 banks in the United States. Now, there's a little over 4,000. And the powers to be, they want to get that number down to like 3 or 4 or 5. So there is a lot more damage coming in the banking system. Trust me, take that to the bank, to borrow a phrase. So please, 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 reduce your exposure to your bank, put some of your money into gold and silver, and establish streams of passive recurring income.
Well done, mate. That was good. I think you might have pulled out the tagline, the new tagline for the Fed, the Reserve Bank of Australia, and maybe every bank out there, keeping incompetent and irrelevant businesses in business. Right? That's actually what they're doing. It's hard to believe, man.
Well, that's what they've been doing for many years, is supporting the incompetent, and now there's a price to pay. If you live in a actual free market system, people, there's got to be consequences to bad decisions. When there are no consequences to bad decisions, then that's how bubbles are created, and that's when pain is created. And when you have people trying to tinker with the free market system, picking winners and losers, which the government argument is famous for, that's when trouble is created. And back in 2008, I don't know whether you remember this, Rob. I don't know. You're probably like 4 years old at the time, but back in 2008, 2010, there was a time there during 2010 where there were so many foreclosures, so many houses that had been foreclosed on, that if you had walked into a bank wanting to see the foreclosure list, if you walked in and say, "Yeah, I want to talk to somebody about foreclosures," the standard response would be, "Yeah, okay, just give me your address. We'll send someone over to take pictures of the." But then you would say, no, I'm here to buy. And you'd see a look of shock on their face. What? You want to buy? And you say, well, yeah, but I don't want to put any money down. That's when you're going to be able to set your terms. When things get that bad, and we are going to see that again. It might not happen this year, or might not even happen next year. It takes a while for the pain to really be felt. But you are going to see another opportunity like that in the relatively short term. So if you're a young person, if you're a young couple and you're planning to buy a house, well, listen, house prices are still at all-time high. They're starting to roll over. But listen, if you can be a little bit patient, take this time to secure what you do have, primarily through gold and silver, so that when that event happens, you're going to be able to go in and have a life-changing purchase.
I don't think a lot of people understand that. Let's just pull on that thread for a second. If you say you bought an ounce of gold today, and just use an arbitrary number, say it was worth $2,000 US. You bought an ounce of gold, but then inflation runs away, and suddenly in the house that you need to buy, the price goes away. So instead of being a $500,000 house, the market collapses, and now that house is worth $250,000. So we're seeing the inverse reaction happen. The market collapses, inflation goes up, but the value of your gold goes up. So that 1 ounce of gold that you've got is now probably worth $8,000 or $9,000, maybe even more, depending on what happens in society, depends on what goes on. It's a little bit of a bet still. It's still a little bit of a gamble. But what we know is that if you lock in your cash into gold today, you're locking in the value at today's value. And as the price goes up of gold, and over a long period of time, it's gone up and it's outperformed just about every other asset class out there. I think it's like, from memory, it was like 400% in the last 20 years. It's gone up. So if 2000,
a lot more than that.
Yeah, it's a lot, right? So I can't remember the exact numbers, and it depends on what you're looking at as well. But if you got a 400% return in the next 20 years, and your $2,000 was worth 400% more in 20 years' time, well, right there is a reason to actually lock in the value. And we're not saying to lock in all of your wealth into that, to put a percentage into it. So you're locking in your wealth. That's an insurance policy, and it's a mechanism that is time tested over centuries. That's how if you were digging in the backyard today and you dug up some Spanish gold from American settlers from the 1500s, imagine how valuable that gold would be. But back in the day, they walked around with gold pieces in their pocket because that was their medium of exchange. But if you had a pockets full of gold pieces from the Spanish conquistadors from the 15th century, imagine how valuable that would be today. That would be amazing. So that just kind of highlights that example. That's one thing that you can do. And we have that mantra here on the channel, reduce your exposure to the bank, because if the financial situation happens and that report, you underestimate how powerful the words were in that report, Ed. That Zero Hedge article was just like bang on point. It was like so to the point. But then you highlighted it at the end, just in 2008 to 2010, just Just over 10 years ago, there was 10,000 banks. Now there's 4,000 banks, and they want that to be whittled down just to a handful. Even if it's more than you say, and say 100 or 200 banks that are left over, we're going to see 80 to 90% of the banks go away. So that's the reason why you need to reduce your exposure to the bank and lock in the value of your cash today, because it's been chewed up by inflation, into gold and silver. And there is your security plan. That's, people always say, oh, what can we do about it? Why? And people always say to me, why do you care about it? Why do you care? And to your point, Ed, you say it beautifully, man. You say you don't have to be a victim of this circumstance. You can do something about it. And the optimism bias that we have in our lives is we've never experienced something like that. So the chances of doomsday happening, like you and I keep, penny, the sky is falling, we keep sounding the alarm that doomsday is happening, your optimism bias gets in the way and says, no, that's not going to happen. There's no way that's going to happen. And therefore you don't do anything, but you need to do something now.
Yeah, another stat, another unfun fact is, again, in case you guys have forgotten, we've talked about it several times, but just to remind you that we had 3 bank failures, just 3, 6 weeks ago. All right, and the combined losses between those 3 banks are more than the entire loss during the 2008-9 financial crisis. So we've already had a crisis that was bigger back in 2008, 2010. We've already had it.
I think the difference is that what you're not seeing this time is you're not seeing pictures of men with boxes of belongings walking out of offices in New York. You're not seeing that.
Well, so far, the government has been they've been able to sweep it under a rug a little bit. We'll take over your debt. We'll bail you out. We'll do so. The government has socialized those losses, and that was okay. And that was an important. That was a game changer. That was, I don't know what do you want. That set a bad precedent when between those 3 banks, they took over the debt and put it on us. Okay, so they socialized that loss. So the question is, are they going to do that for every bank that goes under now? So are there no consequences to banks making bad decisions? That's the moral hazard that we've been talking about. When there are no more consequences to bad decisions, then these bankers have no reason to make better decisions. They're going to keep making bad. There has to be consequences to your bad decisions. And so, but so far the government has done everything they can to. Now the FDIC is supposed to cover any account worth $250,000 or less, right? Well, SVB Bank, there are actually very few accounts that were less than $250,000. Most of these were multi-billion-dollar accounts, largely held by tech VC firms,
Silicon Valley,
yeah. And the Chinese government. A lot of the companies there were CCB.
Hey, my head's about to explode when you're telling me the US government's bailing out Chinese businesses in San Francisco.
Yeah. And I'm sure you're shocked.
It's like Zelensky signing the BRICS deal. Stop it, man. Stop it.
Yeah. And I'm sure you're shocked. You're shocked to learn that. So now the idea of even with SVB Bank, we did see people standing in line, Now, it turns out they did end up getting paid because over the following week, the government says, don't worry, we'll make you whole. But that doesn't mean you can't count on that, my friends. So, and even now, if you try to go to the bank and take out a substantial amount of money, they're going to make you work for it. You're going to have to justify, so what are you spending this money on? But this is the kind of thing, they're making it hard for you to get your money out of your bank. Remember, okay, once again, it's not your money.
No, it's not your money. You've got to reduce your exposure to the bank, get some gold and silver, and create some passive income. Folks, I'd also recommend, as a number 4, is to have a look at this book. I can't really show you. There it is there. It's called The Death of Money, and it's written by a fellow named Jim Rickards. It's a little bit old now. It's an older book, but it talks about the tagline on the book is the coming collapse of the international monetary system. And it's a little bit it's a bit labor intensive. You're going to have to work for it with that audio book in your ears. I'll put the link in the description after the show. I'll pop it in there for you. But It's labor intensive, but it's worthwhile listening to how other countries have self-sabotaged themselves. And he talks a lot about what he calls hyper-finance in that book, and how the Chinese economy is based on hyper-finance. You know, the government uses companies to go forward and to create their Belt and Road Initiative, and it's a public-private partnership that they use, or otherwise known as fascism, and they use the communist commissar, so it's a hybrid of fascism, communism, and technocracy, and capitalism in there as well. And they send these companies and businesses forward to go and do business in these third world companies. And they're backed by the hyper finance of the CCP. So what do you need? You need to build an airport. Okay, how much is that going to cost? $2 billion? Okay, there's your $2 billion. Get it done. Make sure you use Chinese workers, yeah? What do you need to get them in there? We'll help you. We'll use the Air Force to get them in there, etc. So there's a series of things that the Chinese government does with hyper finance. But the problem that they have is back in their economy back at home, they don't have enough GDP to actually cover off the loans that they're taking and given to themselves.
But you know what? Okay, so there's a little Chinese trick that they do over there, by the way, in case you haven't heard. The Chinese, they've set up a lot of their loans to government are off the books, because they set up shell companies that they funnel everything through. And that's all, because a lot of these countries would not qualify for loans through standard like IMF loans, right? So set up these shell corporations, and so your personal credit score or the country, in that case the countries, they can obfuscate those rules. And so
we'll just confiscate that port. We built the port, by the way. We'll have that port, yeah. So debt trap diplomacy is what they call that. But surprisingly, it's happened a lot, and it's been in the media a lot, but surprisingly it's happened not as much as you think. It's a bit more of a media story, the debt trap diplomacy, than it is there. And the reason that it's more of a media story is because the Chinese economy and their foreign policy is based on hyper finance. So when Jim Ricketts also does a really good job in talking about the Japanese economy and the evolution of the Japanese economy after World War II. It's a really interesting story about how it evolved and what they did. And the Korean economy as well, same thing. What they would do is they would have all of this money, they'd print all of this money, with so much money, whatever you need, there you go, there. We need to build these, we need to build the roads. We need to do that, as companies need to get paid. And then they can't do anything about it, they can't afford to pay it back. You know what they do? They just write it off. They just go, here, no more debt. Imagine suddenly in your life, the bank rang you up and said, you know what, you know that like 20 grand you got in your credit card? Don't worry about it, man. Don't worry about it. Fuck it off.
Boy,
that's what they did to themselves.
Yeah. Well, you just opened up a whole. We can't get into this, boy. Someday we're going to talk about that exact point here, and I don't want to say the word here because the algorithm would pick it up. I've got to think of a name.
You've got to do some mental gymnastics to self-censor yourself, you bloody fascist.
Yeah. We'll call it Rosebud or something. We'll think of a name for.
You're going to come up with a military code word for the operation.
Yeah, because the word that I want to say would absolutely be picked up by the algo. So
I'll pull out that part of the book. I'll re-listen to it and I'll find some details on it, because it's really interesting how the Japanese government was financing themselves, and the Koreans were doing the same thing as well. This massive hyper finance to build all of these projects and to get all these things done. And in the end, it's finished. And they're like, people are like running around with their like hair on fire going, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? What are we going to do? And then somebody comes in the boardroom and goes, don't worry about it, man. We'll just write it off. You can't just write it off. You can't just do that. Yes, you can. Watch me write it off. Ready? There, it's written off. and everyone calms down and goes, nobody caught us.
Yeah. And that's what takes me to Rosebud, that conversation.
All right, we're going to have to continue that conversation off camera and figure out how to do that. That sounds fun.
Yeah, it's the neat grease it.
Well, maybe this is part of the great reset that Klaus is talking about.
There, you blew it, man.
Oh, did I blow it?
You're never going to see us again now.
I let it. That's it. Myself. Hang on, I'll beep us out. Where is the beeper? Is somewhere here. It's just not being used. I need to use the censorship.
There you go. Yeah. Cat out of the bag. Yeah.
There it is. That's just what happened to our channel just then.
Yeah, I want to throw an atomic bomb explosion too to see if the algo picks that. How much can this algo take before it
I don't think you get shit canned for that, do you?
For what?
For saying those 3 words?
Yeah. Well, not shit can, but you get. I promise you that I don't know if I promise you. Well, what's likely going to happen here is underneath our description, they're going to have a little definition about the Great Reset.
Ah, right. It's like talking about COVID or climate change or something like that. Then they let you talk about it to a point. Yeah. And then it's like that's that example that we talked about, right? I see all of this is like an electric fence. You can go right up to the electric fence and you can touch it, put your hand on it, and you can take a piss on it if you want. And I dare you to jump over the electric fence. Get on the other side of it. The guards are going to come out and shoot you on sight. So yeah, you're quite right, man.
You know what? I'll tell you from experience, it's not smart to piss on an electric fence.
No, definitely not.
I won't tell you how I know. Just don't do it.
Just definitely don't do that. All right, let's wrap up to today's show. Have you got any closing remarks? Have you got any final thoughts for us today?
Yeah, please. I would love to get some more comments from people out there as you're watching our videos. Please let us know if there are topics that you would like us to talk about that we have not covered. Because otherwise, Rob and I are going to talk about what we want to talk about. So we want to cater to our audience. We want to know what are we missing that you would like us to talk about. And please give us a like. It helps the algo. And programs like us, we need all the help we can get to stay on air. But we're always here. We're always going to tell you the unspoken truth. So. Just please stay with and take a look at at the community, at the Unspoken Truth community. We would love to have you in the community.
Yeah, come on over, folks. theunspokenTruth.com.au. It's just 50 cents a day. It's cheap as chips. There's nothing that's going to stop you from not being part of that community. You'll get a couple of masterclasses, which are really worth your time. They're very, very valuable. And we're going to get pretty active over there in the weeks and months ahead. So we'd love to see you over there into our group Zoom calls that we do and have a little bit of fun over there as well.
One more comment. Okay.
One more?
Yeah. Glass tables are stupid. I would love to hear your comment. I'd like to hear your opinion.
I got a story for you.
Okay.
Want to hear a story as we close out the show? I'll share it with you. It was before my daughter was born. So how old is she now? She's almost 17. So about 18, 19 years ago. It was 19 years ago. A friend of mine said she was moving house. She lived on the top floor of a four-story walk-up. I went up there and I looked and I thought, what's the heaviest thing in here? And I picked up the glass table. And as I picked it up, it's just the size of a normal table, not much bigger than the table that's next to me there, like a 4-place setting, a chair on either side of the table. I picked it up, I walked out the front door of that to walk down the stairs, and I was holding in one top corner and the bottom corner, and what happened is it cracked diagonally from the side I wasn't holding, and as it cracked, the part in my bottom hand rolled forward out of my hand, and as it rolled forward, the part that had cracked diagonally, so there's a big triangle with my left hand on the top left part of it, it was like a guillotine. It came down and it hit me on the arm and it nearly chopped my arm off.
Whoa. Whoa.
Never ever help anybody move house ever again. And whatever you do, don't pick up a glass table ever.
Glass tables are stupid.
They're stupid.
What's the point?
Stupid. You might lose your life.
Get a wood table.
I didn't get hit on the brachial artery in my forearm when that happened, but it messed with my life. It actually killed my aviation career because I couldn't fly an airplane, and I'd finished my commercial pilot's license, like all the exams and everything like that, and I was ready to go and do all the flying component of it, but I couldn't pull on the controls of an airplane. Even though flying with my left hand, then using the throttle with my right hand, I could kind of do that. But if I was to sit in the other seat of the airplane, I couldn't fly with my right hand and use the throttle with my left hand, because as a junior pilot, you sit in the right seat, not the left seat. But I couldn't do that because I couldn't manipulate the controls because it wrecked my arm, and it ruined my aviation career and my dream of being a full-time airline pilot. That kind of went away, which was
for a little thing like that of not having 2 operational arms. They won't let you fly.
I couldn't actually physically do it.
I know, but that seems kind of harsh. I mean, come on.
No, like I can pass my medical now, but I actually physically couldn't do it at the time.
I know, I was kidding. You didn't catch the joke. Jokes don't work when you have to explain it.
Autopilot, yeah. You don't need to manipulate the controls. It's all good. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thanks for joining us here today. We'll see you at the same time, same bat channel tomorrow. Bye for now.